If you're an occupational therapist who feels like you should have it all figured out by now, but don't, you're not alone. Welcome to the OT Coaching Confidential. This podcast is a little different to most. Each episode is a real mentoring conversation with an occupational therapist somewhere in Australia, navigating their own professional growth. I'm Alyce Spence, a paediatric OT and founder of the OT Coach Australia. This week, I'm joined by B, an experienced paediatric occupational therapist who's built both a thriving therapy practice and a strong creative presence alongside her clinical work. In this conversation, we explore what it's like to hold two successful paths at once, and the questions that arise when you're at a bit of a professional crossroads, not because something's broken or not working, but because you're ready to choose what comes next. Now let's get started. Welcome, B. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have this conversation. You have very interesting background and lots of very cool ideas up your sleeve. So tell us a bit about how you became an OT.
Sure. So I found OT in a jump guide in high school and decided I really liked the sound of it. Yeah. So had an interest in mental health and pediatrics, but went into OC rehab for the first year and decided that wasn't for me, but continued working interstate in a rural, regional kind of setting and went into pediatrics where I started doing some not-for-profit and private practice work, which eventually led to me starting my own business.
Cool. How long have you been an OT for?
8 years this year.
Yeah, very cool. And how long have you had your practice for?
It'll turn 5 in April.
Oh, wow. How cool.
It's so exciting.
Yeah. So you've been through lots of the ups and downs and all of the things. And is it just you? What does the practice look like at the moment?
Yeah, so it's just myself, just transitioned from being a sole trader into a company structure. But for the last 5 years, I've been a sole trader. And over the years, I had built up my ability to delegate out to various freelancers. So I do have a team of people that are freelancers that help me out with different tasks.
Cool. And is that because you're doing not just OT work, but some other like content work and creation and things like that?
That's right. So after a few years interstate, I came back home and just started to post on social media, just with the idea of building up my caseload and reputation in the community. And I had a viral video that came out of nowhere and just opened up like all of these opportunities for doing more content creation work and work online, which was very exciting and just kind of accidentally happened.
How interesting. How exciting. How long have you been doing that for?
3 years, I think, since coming back home from interstate.
So cool. So what did it look like? How did it get started? Who approached you? All of those things.
Well, I had just gone to a couple of local council events on how to post on your social media and set up some business pages and just started having a go at my own videos.
Cool.
And I had some particular videos that were around toys and play and child development, just kind of
amazing
and be seen by thousands of people. Yep. And so I continued on from there and eventually it has led to some paid work as well.
So cool. So you're like an influencer.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
But cool, because I think sometimes it can be tricky to define the roles that we're sitting in and how it aligns and where it sits. And there's lots of complexities of holding your professional role and this role on the side as well, which I would imagine is one of the reasons why we're having a bit of a chat today. So how have you navigated through that? So that makes sense moving to the company because you've got lots of complex stuff going on that we need to sort of divvy out and separate a bit. Have you been able to drop back from your clinical work or is it this stuff's happening on the side? Like where are we sitting?
It's a work in progress, I would say. I think historically, I have a pattern of overloading my schedule and cramming in too much that I think I'll have time for that I don't. So I have been slowly dropping my caseload. So I definitely have a bit. And the content creation takes a lot more time than you would expect. So I do have to
I am just learning this at the moment. So I am 100% on board with you. So I decided to set up my Insta last year. Hate it, not for me. So I'm like, I definitely need to bring somebody in to help me with this. I've got the ideas, but I can't bring it to life. So I can absolutely see how much of a time suck it could be, particularly if you're doing it intentionally and like with money linked to it and all those other things. And I wonder, one of the things, I guess, it would be tricky to know when it's appropriate to ramp up and step the other one down. Is it like all those things. Is this stable? Can I stick with this? Is it worth dropping off the thing that I've got and build over the last 5 years for that to go? And I imagine that's probably been what the last 12 months has really felt like.
Yes. Well, I think I made a decision that I didn't want to be purely an influencer. I just don't feel like that was my calling with the space. And I feel a bit entrepreneurial. So I decided I want to launch a product and have a go at that and use my online space to help me on that journey. So at the moment, it is a matter of I'm in the building phase of this product, ready to launch it, hopefully in a few months.
Cool.
So there is that element of I have to see how this goes as to whether I can then scale down some of my OT work.
Oh, this is so cool. How interesting. Are you linked to any like funders or anything like that for the product that you're scaling? Or is that, we've been watching lots of Shark Tank over the holidays. I am all over this product-based stuff. Have you got investors and things like that? Or is it something that you're trying to get off the ground yourself?
I love Shark Tank. No, I've done a few business programs and decided to self-fund the initial stages. I think investment would be something to look into if it went well and I wanted to scale it up. So I'm just investing my own funds from the OT business into building this.
Yeah, cool. And has the accountant talked you through how to track that? That'd be quite interesting. So for me, I had like the practice and then my other business was set up under different profiles in my accounting, not separate companies, just different profiles. So we could track the money a bit cleaner.
Yes, I have some knowledge of that, but it probably is a little bit mixed up at the moment.
Yeah. Like it could be just cool to go and look at it. And particularly if it ends up being a product that you might set, like something, the more separate it is. Talked to another colleague about this recently, and they had intentionally separated, so had separate companies for both of the things that they were doing, so that if in the future they wanted to sell that, it wasn't all intertwined together, because I would imagine that could be tricky. Obviously, you're at this really early phase, but it's probably also easier to do before you get too much further down the track. Yeah. And then also like things that might impact that, like if you end up like outsourcing things to a different country for builds and things like that, because otherwise your company is then going overseas, which then impacts on data sharing, like all of those other bits and bobs that we wouldn't naturally think about. So I wonder that might be a good chat to go and take back to your accountant to consider in that regard.
That's a really good point.
And like think about your insurances and all that sort of stuff. It might just be easy to have it totally separated rather than it all intertwined and linked together. And because you have got the other side of all the work that you're doing, you're not just doing this. It's not just a try it and see what will happen. That it probably will move. So you're probably better off setting it up the right way from the start rather than not. So interesting. Are you on that? There's a Facebook page called Like-Minded Bitches Drink Wine.
Somebody else has recommended this.
Yeah.
But I
that's
haven't
like
joined yet.
A lot of product development and drop shipping and things like that. So just a cool spot to go and have a look and feel a bit more comfy, I guess, like that there's other people in this space and doing this type of thing. That's what I think Shark Tank's really cool for. Like, they've done this stuff too. How interesting. Have you got a mentor or anyone in that space supporting you?
Not a permanent mentor, but I'm very lucky in that the local council that I'm in is very supportive of small businesses. They have lots of events. I've had a few grants and I've had a scholarship to go and do like a business intensive program last year. So through that process, I've been able to meet a lot of mentors along the way.
And is it a product that you'll have to have made and shipped, or is it something that you can just do here, like a digital product or something?
I've had a go at some digital products. That was my stepping stone, I suppose. And this one will be a physical product that has multiple elements. So logistically, it's a little bit complex that it will have multiple things being combined together and shipped out.
So you would need, so you'd need to have like builds and that sort of thing. So, perfect timing. I was just chatting to somebody who was in just a product industry the other day, and they'd just gone to China and done the scoping visit to go and check out the different, but that's what they talk about on that Facebook page as well. So that would put you into that right mindset of like, what am I meant to be thinking when I'm looking at this? But I do feel like, I don't know where I've seen this, I feel like there is more guidance for that back end, big picture type work, a bit more. There is support out there. And this is what's really hard when we come from our OT world into a bit of a broader world. We don't know all that other. Did you find that really cool when you were doing your business courses to learn all those other things that you're like, I've been running a business for 4 years and I haven't heard about half of these things.
Yeah, I love learning. It's all
Mm.
very exciting to me. I think that's one reason I probably chose OT actually.
Yeah, so interesting. Oh, how cool. Well, that sounds very exciting. And I think that, you're just at that tricky point at the moment where there's just lots of balls in the air and lots of things moving. How many days are you doing clinically then? So what's that look like with your split throughout the week?
Yeah, so I'll talk you through my week schedule. So Mondays and Tuesdays are split between the mornings working from home and afternoons in a clinic space. So on Monday mornings, I try and do a couple hours and get all of my content prepped for the week. Tuesday morning, I do have some telehealth clients. So that's mainly a clinical day. Wednesday is a community day. So I'm out and about, and that's a packed in day, usually 5 clients and probably 2 hours of driving. Then Thursday and Friday, I've been trying to dedicate to the product development and building up that side of the business. And that's been a work in progress to scale down my clients.
Get to that. And what about, have you had funding to be able to afford to do it all? Because otherwise you're dropping a fair chunk of billable time to get this off the ground.
Yeah, for sure. I've had to look at that, especially at the beginning of this year, because last year was probably when I decided I'm going to go all in, I'm going to give this a go. And I really need the time to make it happen. I can't keep trying to stitch it in and hope that I will get it done, because I won't. So yes, I have taken a bit of a pay cut, but I have worked out,
what you can do.
Target for myself, and I'm happy with that.
Again, one of the benefits of you being in business for so long, to be able to know what you can hold, what you can't hold, and also how much money you need to be able to just live on the minimal that you can. But where would you like this conversation? I could take this conversation in so many directions today. What would you like to talk about?
I know, I've got lots of ideas floating around in my head as well. I feel like it's finding my balance in OT. Do I see myself continuing clinical OT work for the rest of my career? What kind of OT work should I continue? I think it's probably a good idea to really focus in on what my niche should be with that work, because I do really enjoy it. But at the same time, I can find it really draining. And especially
you're also potentially getting to the point where it's not novel and new anymore. So it's not super interesting.
I think that's definitely an element of, I just like creative projects and using my creativity and doing
this boring seeing kids week to week. This is really dragging me down here. I just want to be in and doing other things. But interesting. And this is a really common thing, I guess, we see in that between that 5 to 10 year practice time. If you've been in peds for a really long time, where you get to the point where not everybody, but a lot of particularly more entrepreneurial mind people, where we're like, and mastered, what's next on the cards? Where am I going to now? Where you're sort of at master level therapist, right? Like you're not really needing to grow too hugely in your clinical skills. And then you get to this little bit of weird self-doubt where it's a lot of do I even know what I'm doing? I'm not even trying hard anymore. What is this? And that can feel weird unless we're acknowledging that is quite intentional. I'm choosing this because I can do it in my sleep. I'm good at it, easy. I'm great. I'm not doing them a disservice in any way, but it's not taking up all my cognitive power, because right now that's all being pushed over somewhere else. Because that would be something to think about while you're still in this growing the other side of things. You don't want to dabble into a new scope and have too many new things on the go at once.
I'm actually not sure it is that. I actually think I'm more of I definitely have imposter syndrome. Do I know what I'm doing? Like you mentioned, and constantly learning. I've gone through my career doing hundreds of hours of CPD, and that has settled down, and I'm finding I feel more natural around my clients, and I've got some really nice relationships with family. But at the same time, I had a student last year, and as I was taking her to each client, I realized although they were all social emotional work in some way, they were all so different. And I was like, no wonder this is tiring work. And I guess putting that alongside what's happening in the NDIS is, that's been really hard. Last year was quite hard. And also there's that anxiety of, being a pediatric therapist in NDIS, am I going to have work by the end of this year?
I've got 2 unstable work platforms that I'm currently dabbling in. Are you mostly private? So when you have seen all of these clients, have they been private or have they mostly been NDIS clients?
Oh, yeah.
Because you've done some very good specific training. So you have very solid scope. So if you just want to talk through a bit of those ones, like you're an SOS therapist, you've done lots of like quite specific sensory based interventions and things like that. So theoretically, you're really well placed to see private clients, right? Like you're in a really good space. It's just that slowly people aren't paying for private services at the minute. So all your clients right now, they're all NDIS, not private funded, or have you got a bit of a mix?
All of them right now are NDIS. Over the years, I've had an occasional Medicare referral, but that's been it.
Yeah. So I wonder if you are still really love that clinical space, I would be trying to push into that private. Try and pick up your referral partners being those private referrals, which should sit really well aligned with your clinical pieces that you can offer. They may not be as long-term sit and keep clients, but still a decent chunk of time, because then you also get this really great satisfaction in the work that you do, because you get to see all those different people. You're getting a little bit more movement coming through, but it also helps to super consolidate what you're doing. So when you've got a bit of a time limit, you're like, oh my gosh, we could go here or here or here, and let's be really intentional with our time together, which sounds like it still lights you up and you still really love that work.
And finding what I enjoy the most is when I have 12 families to work with. I have maybe 3 where all of the kids are on NDIS. The parents are usually neurodivergent as well. And I really love working with them holistically and making some broader changes to their routines or their family systems. And I find that to be quite meaningful versus the one-on-one client work.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this can be tricky. So in our practice, we transitioned to that more holistic approach quite early on. So our onboarding was a parent session only. And so it became quite clear that there would be parent involvement expected, parent coaching sessions and things like that. And I got to that point probably around similar time to where you are now, where the one-to-one therapy for me was not fun. But what I really loved was solving all the problems. Like, throw all the hard stuff at me, I will work through all of these. And at that stage, I didn't really understand that concept of the parent coaching as cleanly as what I do now, of like, let's do parent coaching. That's actually the intervention that I think is going to make the most difference for you and your family. And then that ongoing piece. So I have had colleagues, and this might be something to think about, where they have set up and thinking about with your public profile, that they set up for consult services with parent coaching only. So that might be thinking about longevity. They're probably going to pay for your private services. That's not going to be impacted by Thriving Kids as much, but they want a more experienced therapist who's going to look holistically and problem solve the challenges that they are finding. So that could be something to think about, where you could start just gently tweaking into that direction, where you're more, we used to call it a relationships-based therapist. So I would say I'm much more focused as a relationships-based therapist. I'm not necessarily a skill builder therapist. I want to look at that whole big picture. I want you to be connected and supporting all of those things. As we got bigger, we couldn't do that as narrowly. Like, as we had more therapists, we had to then get more of those skill-based clients. But when it is just you, and you do have the opportunity for your telehealth and that sort of thing, you've got space to move into the area that you want. Have found that others, we tend to hit a bit of a wall, where they'll do that and be happy with that for 10 sessions, 6 months, maybe 12 months. And then they're like, so when does therapy start? When do you work with the kid? You're like, oh, not me. Maybe somebody else will do that part. Or, like, that's still what the ultimate thing is in their head as to what the therapy will look like.
Definitely. I definitely experienced that as well. I think at the moment I'm doing probably a blend. I'll do parent sessions and a mix of things with the child as well. But the families I really love are where the parents will come to the parent sessions. Are involved. So, but I do love the idea of more telehealth too. Like, I really enjoy my work from home days. As well. The parent coaching could fit nicely into that.
Totally. Are you, from your public profile, when you're like had that social media influx, are they coming to you as an OT, or are they coming to you as someone who talks about like toys and things like that? So, like, is there space for you to be a therapist who could offer generalized stuff to then be like, book in a session and we can chat through your child's challenges and I can give you some strategies and ideas?
Definitely. I haven't thought about that, but definitely there is scope. I think what I want to emphasize in my online work is parent-child relationships, play as part of development, and also incorporating evidence-based into my work. And I've been navigating that because the videos that are virally usually are like Ollie's toy or, really consumerism. So I've been trying to find a balance with that too.
Yeah. And I wonder something else to just big picture go and look at. There's something funny around giving clinical advice online. So you've just got to be careful that you've got your disclaimers and things like that. But when you do go and look at all of this, like your company and insurance and things like that, maybe just scope that out a little bit because it is a little bit funny and that might help you to determine what you're comfortable sharing on there and what you're not comfy sharing on there. So we've had people who've made products like courses and things like that for families, and then it can just be tricky because it's OT endorsed, just gets very murky. So trying to get some clarity around that would be helpful to help you target where you're going. With like your content, are you just doing that all or have you got somebody helping you to be intentional with it now? I know you said you were outsourcing. Are you doing like 3-month plans and all like to that depth or what does that all look like?
A monthly plan. So I have a freelancer that will edit and post my content.
Yeah. But still you sort of determining what and when and that sort of thing.
Yeah, my freelancer will do like an analysis once a month and we'll come and look at it and see what's performed well and what we should keep going with or new ideas. She will look at what's performing well that other creators are posting. We have built a bit of a process over time. It's still me and the content.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing that takes me time to film it, but it's a lifesaver having someone to edit it because when I was doing that initially, it was taking me hours.
I 100%. These podcasts, love running them, editing them, like my worst nightmare ever. So totally on board.
Yeah. Yeah. I did try and get somebody on board to help me with managing comments because I started building an email list. I got some digital marketing advice and was told I need to start moving some of these followers over to an email list. And so I did that by a freebie that they can download. And then I would get hundreds of comments. So I've also recently got someone just to help me send out links and things. Slowly I've gotten a lot better at delegating over the last few years. I think that would have been tricky for me a few years ago.
Absolutely. It does sound like it might be worth you sitting with somebody to do that big picture strategy. I know I'm thinking about this at the moment. I am a baby compared to you in this space. I know nothing about any of the algorithmy type stuff, but I know that the people that I'm working with, they're talking about what is our focus what does success look like and what are we trying to push? And I wonder that might be worthwhile you starting to think about. So you've got your ultimate goal of this launch, how we're going to lead up to it, where do I want to be taking them to? But on the flip side of that, thinking about with your other business, who am I trying to target through that as well? Do we separate it out? What does that look like? So it sounds like some external advice around that from someone who gets it would be quite helpful because, we only know what we know. So it's really hard to teach ourselves everything and it takes so long when you do it that way.
Yeah, for sure. For launching, I have no idea. Like what you said earlier about learning all this other business stuff that you don't have to know in an OT business. There's a lot of learning and definitely I've got to consult with someone about safety testing and meeting Australian standards and
absolutely. But I coming back and thinking about Shark Tank, that's what they talk through, right? Like you get somebody who knows that stuff. So they help you to do the testing, but then they also help you to know how to do the launching. And we have general ideas. And I think you could do a fair bit of this in chat. I do a lot of this before I launch a new program. Chat currently is being very helpful. Like, Alyce, you're so smart. That's a great idea. I'm like, no, that's unhelpful. Critically analyze what I have put in here and tell me what you think. Like, do we need to be more targeted? What does that look like? So, as much as AI can be helpful, and I've seen it right for marketing plans and things like that. So you can, but you need to know where you're taking it to. So I have done that a little bit in there. Like when I was launching something last year, I was like, right, I want to launch. How much lead time do you think that would look like? What do you think? And it can help you to tweak and step those out just to have those bigger plans. Because at the moment you're doing just sort of a weekly thing, right? Like we're doing here's info here rather than we're intentionally building it to get to this point over here. And same with your mailing list, like same with that stuff. Like what are we getting that for and how are we harnessing that? So it brings us back, I guess, thinking about the whole business and what do I want this to look like in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And there are many, I don't know, so it is very annoying and very hard in this space. You can't be probably as rigorous or as planned as we can be, but also you have capacity. Like when it's just one of us in the business, it all goes to crap. We go and work for someone else. Like it's not the worst case scenario. We would still be employable. So you probably can go pretty like decently into this and be pretty well safeguarded to go, well, if it all went haywire, I can probably walk into a job on a decent salary.
Yes, that's a great thing about OT. I've always thought that worst case scenario, when I moved away from home, worst case scenario, I can come home or I'll always be able to find a job. But I know that I don't like the idea of having to work for someone else ever again.
Oh yeah.
So staying self-employed would be amazing, but I know that there's an option.
Absolutely. And the world's sort of your oyster, right? Like if the product goes super well, do we go down that rabbit hole? And that's where all of our energy goes. And we've got this to fall back on. So, such an interesting space. But it does, I think we probably need to think back through clinically what you're wanting and what growth you want to do. In your previous roles, did you get to do any leadership supervision? It sounds like you really enjoyed having that student with you. That sounds like that might be a nice thing to offer, like once a year, maybe a pretty early year student. So it's not too intense and not too taxing on you as well.
Yes, I do love teaching. I think sharing stuff with my content has been really enjoyable. I've enjoyed having students. This year, I actually said, sorry, I don't have capacity because I think the challenge has been the extra time commitment alongside my usual pattern of just being a bit too busy.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I could take students even with my caseload being part-time. I know that's not a concern, but it is something that I enjoy. Supervision-wise, I've never really put my name out there. I thought about adding my name to some of those lists and looking at that as an option as well.
I think it's a bit of a different kettle of fish as well. Like, yes, you don't have the time. Like it's not a necessary pathway and it's another skill that you have to build. Is that something that, like, again, if we came back and we're like, yes, this is something I want to get good at. I need to build these skills. I want to have that ability to manage and supervise and train other people. But it doesn't sound like that's where you're needing, where, an easy student, you do it for 2 weeks and then you're out. Seems like it meets your needs, gives you that opportunity to really just consolidate and be like, I do know when I've added to the profession, amazing. So like, I would think for you, first or second year placements rather than anything lengthier than that, where it is literally just them coming and hanging and observing and getting to do bits and pieces. So there's not as much, having to give them caseloads or giving heaps of that independence. Much easier to just do, like, you could potentially look at doing it where it's just 1 day a week. So they're not with you for the 2 clinical days. They're just with you for 1. It's just a longer placement.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. And like, again, it's not something you have to do. It's just if you're going, how do I shake up my year a little bit with this clinical work? And it's really difficult in this space. We had probably 5 years where things were really stable. So we had really clear student programs. We'd take a second year and a third year cohort. We knew when they'd be every year. We would have different people put their hands up for it. But then NDIS went to crap. And then it's really hard to plan around that when there's so much movement and change. And what if we have to totally revamp the whole business? So totally get that. And it probably doesn't need to be something for this year. But if things did stabilize, it would be a really lovely way for you to really still feel connected and have that space to continue growing as a professional, because you get to do a lot of growth when you're hosting a student, but only when you do it intentionally. Otherwise, it's just like, this is just a lot. When do you finish? I'm holding space for so many people.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I think as we've been talking as well, I'm like, is this more about focusing on a few things? And I've been reading a book, I think 4,000 Weeks, and it's all about managing time and making decisions where you cut off all the other options. And I'm like, is it about that for me, that I like having the options, but not too many that it's overwhelming?
Totally. I've been thinking this myself. I met with a new business coach yesterday and I was like, so I don't need you to come in and tell me I need to narrow. You need to understand that I have like 20 active programs and projects happening that aren't going to stop. But what I need from you is to tell me whether it's worth it. Like I just need someone to stop, and I can tell you straight up, I just don't tend to think like that. So last year I had a little whiteboard. I wrote all my projects down on it, and that was enough. Where for others, they need to go, what's my 3-month goal? What's my 6-month goal? I don't think it would hurt for you to do that. Like I've got to that point now, but it took me a little while to be like, it's okay. I know it feels really restrictive, but also it would help tidy up what is our focal for this 3 months. What's our socials focal? What do I need to do for the business? Boom, 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 boom. And then for the therapy stuff, you might not even need to do that narrow, but I do think that narrow point would allow you to just have more clarity around your week to week. Because I imagine your weeks feel chockers and you are just running, doing all of the things all of the time.
I am very tired. And I think when I think about my ideal week, it is working a bit less. But then I think there is, like you said, the uncertainty of like, oh, if I cut off my work and then this other thing doesn't go well. And I know I can get more referrals. It's probably a bit of self-doubt as well.
Yeah. Yes, but it's also a really crap time in market, right? Like there is all these changes. It is true that if we took the foot off the pedal a little bit, we might see a decrease in referrals. It's not inaccurate self-doubt. It is the current state of the market, which makes all of this, and I'm finding exactly the same thing, it makes all of this planning so difficult because it's not like, and that's why shifting to more of a private market allows you to have control over the clients that you're targeting rather than being dictated to by an external funding body. So that's the only potential difference to start thinking about is I offer this amazing service. We have wait lists. It's all there rolling. You just get to pick how big you are, but you're still actively trying to get that wait list rolling so that there's not no one if you need it.
I'm just thinking about other funding sources in that and private and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder with my parenting work, whether doing like some adult, I feel like if I was working with an adult solely, a lot of the work would be the same, essentially.
Yeah.
So I also wonder about tapping into that, but then that's a whole nother process.
And I wonder, it's a relatively heavily tapped marketplace, especially where you're located too. Like there's a lot of people tapping into that same space. Have you looked at Freedom Yourself OT? I think that's what it's called. So Becky Eakins.
Becky Eakins.
Yeah. Because some of her stuff, like I wonder with the parenting work that you want to do, there might be a program you could put together that parents work their way through that's not specifically OT, it's just more general. So like you said, you'd be doing similar work with adults, but the work is a little bit different, I guess. Like you would either be supporting parenting or supporting them to live their best lives. And that's quite different, where this one might be supporting parenting and how to play. Like that's where your knowledge does sit and it's not diversifying you too hard. But that could be something to have a bit of a think about as well. Sounds like you've got a lot of that content that it's there. You just have to make something more intentional for it. But yeah, again, this is where it gets really murky. When we're in OT, where do I sit? Is this professional advice? Is this like just knowledge that I have? And again, it comes back to that insurance pathway as well and wondering about what their knowledge in that space looks like and what you are and aren't allowed to recommend and do. Because I've got other colleagues who've done similar to this where then they've gone international. So they're offering international consultations and bits and pieces like that. So again, there is market. It's just a lot to get off the ground and get moving.
Yes, I think I know what I know in terms of NDIS. So I just stuck in that space. I haven't given much thought to where else I can go with that. So that's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. Like I would really love you to do a bit of a reflection over these next 3 months and think about your clinical scope. So obviously you're sitting in that social emotional space. Sounds like you're doing quite individualized therapy. So you might find, like I found, I don't really want to make a program because it's really not straightforward. And I feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I was just giving you more generic information rather than targeted information, which was my thought process then that pulled me out and said, no, that's not something I'm comfortable doing a half-less job of. Or is there something more targeted that I do feel really comfortable with? So like I'm really comfortable in that co-regulation space. That could be something I could teach and happily have whoever come and join, and that would be okay. But I wouldn't want to be doing self-regulation work where I think it's so individualized, the support that they need, that doing a general program. Because then I start thinking, well, what if they then say, well, Alyce said, we don't need this. I'm like, Alyce did not say that. We didn't have an individualized conversation about so that's the bits that I start thinking, I think you'd be relatively similar to me in that more individualized therapy space.
Yes, good point. Yeah, lots of ideas to think about.
I know. I don't know that we're helping. I think I'm just adding in more ideas. Where should we go? What shall we do?
It's great. It's great to hear perspective and other options. I think when I think at the moment, I'm like, my options are what I'm doing OT clinically, because that's what's making me money right now. And yeah, absolutely.
And I guess that's a really important thing to come back to. Everyone talks about scale. Everyone talks about building. Okay. No one in our work talks about scale, but in real business world, they talk about that all the time. In our world, they really don't. And sometimes you come back and you're like, yes, but again, I'm comfortable with what I do. It's easy to do. I can make solid money out of it. I'm happy with the supports that I can offer people. So I don't need to touch that. I'm in a really similar spot to you at the moment where I'm trying to theoretically decrease my face-to-face mentoring times. But then also, what do I do with my other time? So I really want to spend a whole day doing social media, so I'm having that constant place. So if someone comes, fill it, take the appointment, because I like that thing where I actually get that feedback straight away. So I'm really having to heavily go, and you've done this really well. How much time, money, energy can I invest into this thing, and maybe even parameter it a bit better than what I currently am at the moment, but go, I'm going to do this. I'm putting in, if you treated it like you're paying somebody else to do it, but it's your time, that even could be helpful to headspace. Yeah, I chose to do this. This is an intentional choice, and don't pick up another client because this was all planned out.
Yes, I definitely relate to that. Another referral will come through, or someone will need help, and I'm the helper. It may kicks in.
Send me in. Absolutely. Yeah. So you're obviously doing all the business stuff by yourself. So your clinical work, you don't have admin supporting you with onboarding, that sort of thing, or have you got people helping with that too?
I have a virtual admin that will do my invoicing, service agreements, booking initial appointment. So I do have that. And I also have somebody helping me with email marketing, just to get a picture of my team. So I've got the social media, email marketing, and then virtual admin, and a
all separate people. Gosh, you've got a whole team around you. How lovely.
Yes, I've done well building that up. Maybe only the last year or 2 years I started actually delegating out, which has really made a difference.
And is the virtual assistant doing your inquiries? Or is that still being managed by you?
Yeah, so there's like an admin email that they monitor and will send to me. It needs my attention.
What about referrals? If it's a referral, is it bouncing to you? You need to check it. Then you tell her, have you set it up that she can screen for that? Yeah.
Not to be like odds or no. She sends some basic, a blurb of info of this is what the OT does and doesn't do. So I hadn't thought about that as an option.
Well, when you were saying before, when that client comes through and then you're inclined to say yes, you've already got the system in place to have a boundary there. So we had our referrals would go via the website. So then it would come to the referral inbox. I was not meant to look at them, but often would look at them. But our senior team would be the one reviewing for suitability, but with the caveat that we knew we weren't putting them straight in. So rarely would they ever bounce straight in. So we wouldn't really review that as they came in. They'd sit there, and then once a week we could look at it. But if you set some really clear rules up, she could review that, see if it was suitable or not, get them to be added to the wait list without your interface in there as well. So then you're not sitting there going, oh my God, I could pick them up. I'm not helping them. And should I add them in? Because that's where we fall into that trap. I would imagine you'd do the same. If you get a little bit of a sad story, then let's shuffle, let's make happen, where it sounds like that would be good to just settle that down a little smidge.
Yes. I think maybe one of the issues I have that you don't know how involved a parent is going to be until you meet them. And I've had some
tricky ones,
some complex cases that have been maybe some flags from the beginning where maybe I should step back.
You would have picked it up.
I just continue with it.
Have you done or seen my caregiver capacity framework?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, go and have a look at that. So I've got a training on my website called Adapting Therapy to Fit the Family. So I put a framework together a couple of years ago called the Caregiver Capacity Framework, and I've presented on a few conferences. It's actually so helpful. So like you said, we work in these very complex scenarios with various different capacity of families, which hugely impacts on your ability, particularly with the type of training that you've had, right? You've had beautiful, holistic, family-centered intervention training, and then it can be really hard when you get a family who doesn't want that and they just want you to magically fix. And so the caregiver capacity framework essentially is looking at scaling the caregiver's capacity in that moment. So is it a lower end or high end? and then tweaking the way that you approach. So if you think about the PEO model, lower the scale, the more we're focusing on just person. So you might be more direct intervention, which you've already said, that one-on-one stuff when you don't get to be holistic really doesn't light you up. It doesn't light me up. I can do it and I know I can support it. So that like even having that to go, yep, but that's an intentional choice, quite tricky. I'm just focusing on person, super helpful. Takes all of that, I want to do this, or I should be doing this, or I feel like I want to do extra. Instead, just go, no, that's just where they're at the moment. And that's the support I can offer them. So for you, you want those high capacity families or those mid-range ones that want your help. Like they want support, they want help, but that's how we can start framing it and making that clear from referral point onwards on the website, on everything that you're popping out there. I'll be working with you. I'll be providing strategies to you. I'll be helping you. And it's really, really clear. And that's what, again, they're being built in. So I said before, we built in that parent only session to start with. So in that you can vibe it out, but it's not a phone call. It's a paid session. So you're gathering all the information. You're wondering and talking about how you could help them effectively. And if it really wasn't a good fit, go, I'm just not sure that the way that I work is going to align with what you're seeking. You guys haven't been hit as much as what we've seen elsewhere about, we're not getting into schools for a lot of clients and things like that is getting a lot trickier. So again, really easy barrier of like, I know I can't get into that school. Sorry, it's too far away or it's not in that sort of zoning. But I know when I started my practice, I got referred what I would say all low capacity families. So it was another speechy, that was her caseload. And I was like, this isn't the work that I went into private practice to do. Like I want to work with families who are like, Alyce, you said to do this. I did it. Oh my goodness, we saw that. And obviously capacity changes and all of those things. But I think that framework would be really nice for you to have a bit more clarity around being okay with making those choices to work with different people at different points, because the models that you're trained in are pretty high intensity that the parents need to be engaged in.
For sure. As you were talking about the PEO and narrowing in on the person, it reminded me of when I was interstate doing outreach rural work. And I went to a supervision session and I was like, I'm just seeing this kid once a fortnight. The parent is not even there. And I'm like, I feel like I'm not doing anything. And I remember my supervisor at the time was like, well, is something better than nothing? And my response at that time was, I don't think it is. I don't think what I'm doing here is. And I was really passionate about rural work and helping families in those spots. But because I was going out once a fortnight for one day, there was no flexibility for the clients either. You're talking about that, maybe think about that. And I think I have changed over the years a little bit to accept, for some families, that might be all they can access. Yeah, it's not what I'm passionate about.
You may not have come across then in my frameworks. There's this other one where I put a contracting step in therapy. So the contracting being like, okay, I've gathered all that information. I've acknowledged that you're quite low capacity at the moment, or you really don't have capacity for this. Let's talk about what I can feasibly support you with. So that's the bit where I think that's where you can still choose to do that work, but you're putting caveats around it rather than just going, okay, sure. Oh, this is really hard. I feel so yucky. This doesn't feel like we're going where I need it to. But instead, early on, I had a really clear and open conversation. And I said, this is a lot. Oh my goodness, you've got so much going on right now. But the goal that you picked, toileting, is going to need your assistant to work on that. I can't make that magically happen. Let's talk about things I could work directly with him on. Boom, 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 boom. So what I've realized over the years, for most of us, we hate conflict. So we don't have a direct conversation. We instead go, yay, okay, I'll go and I'll magically make that happen. Where now I am much more, it's so much clearer to be kind, right? To go, hey, I can't work on the thing that you're wanting in the way that you expect me to. So let's have a chat about what that looks like. I might send you over and I'll pop it as a download. I've put together this free resource recently, which is super helpful for those trickier conversations. I've called it the therapy conversation planning tool. But I also think for you, it would be super helpful to have a flick through it and go, this is how I naturally think anyway. So I would imagine all of that sort of popping up. So it's like, tell me the context. What's the concern? What's the school context? What's this? What are the parents wanting? What's school wanting? Okay, now, what is my concern? What do I think is going on? Boom, 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 boom. Because what I find with a lot of those tricky families, we tend to stumble on our feet because it's a tricky conversation to have. We accidentally still end up in the same spot rather than us having that direct conversation because we haven't been intentional with where we were taking the conversation or what I really wanted to get imparted there. And that might be just a nice professional growth area for you because you're got that all in that other space. But in this clinical world to go, yeah, this is who I am and this is what I offer and here's who I am as a therapist and here's how I can support you. But I can also be super kind to support you if I'm not a good fit.
Definitely. That's 100% relevant for me. Something I've struggled with if there's a conflict or where I've had to, or families requested something I can't fund, it gets me quite anxious. So it's something I have worked on. But yes, like a formula for that would be super helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's something that we all tend to find hard and, then the problem becomes a lot bigger than if I leant in and had that conversation at the start. So for example, that equipment stuff, the contracting step now that you would be having is, so I'm just letting you know, if we ever want to use your equipment fund, let me tell you about how this works in my service, rather than them turning around being like, I've got a list. Can you just write me a letter? And you're like, oh, I didn't tell you that's not how I work. So now I can't come back and be like, hang on, remember I said this is how it would look if we were to do this together. Do you listen on the big podcast to the OT Unplugged?
I've got it on my list. I don't think I've listened to it.
So that would be nice for you to listen to. So to stay across all the NDIS stuff, that would be really cool to have a listen to that. But the other nice thing is listening. So Sarah and Nikki are both very experienced clinicians. Hearing them talk about how they say no to people can be really helpful to be like it is okay just to say no. That's actually what we're meant to do. And because you've been by yourself for quite a while, you haven't had that modeling happening from others to go this is meant to get easier. This still feels tricky for me because I haven't had other people to learn from to tidy it up for me.
For sure. That sounds good.
Or you're like me and you just don't have conflict and we just don't have hard conversations because it's too hard. And so for me, I had the same thing. It took me a long time to get better at it because I just avoided it.
I've done some really good PDs around self-development and self-leadership, which have been helpful in getting to that direction. Michelle Bahari's stuff, I really found that very valuable. And doing some PDs outside of the clinical work because I've done so much clinical stuff. So I do find now it's navigating the family dynamics is the main learning area for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I reckon definitely go and check out that caregiver capacity workshop, and I'll send you over the little flyer that you can have a squiz at that has the model sort of written on there as well. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We normally do wrap this up with a bit of a note to self. So I reckon for you, let's do a bit of a note to self. I don't know. What do you think we could either do when you did that accidental viral social media post, or when you decide to step into that space, or when you decide to go out and start working for yourself? What would be the best time that you would like to impart some self-knowledge to yourself?
Oh, definitely when I was starting my business, I think at the time, I was so nervous about what would other people think and was I qualified to do it. And I think, the note to self would be to be more confident. You've got this, you've got the skills and the resources, and keep going. You're going to do great things.
And apparently you're going to have a viral social media post and the world is going to be your oyster in a couple of years. How exciting. What a wonderful story. I'm so excited to see where things end up going for you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Alyce.
The OT Coaching Confidential podcast exists to support occupational therapists to think clearly, feel less alone, and take meaningful steps in their work. If this conversation resonated for you, take a moment to notice what stood out. Have a think about the takeaways from this session and what you might be able to apply in your own personal or professional practice. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, head on over to the otcoach.au. Inside here, you'll find resources, workshops, trainings, lots of different things, including some new freebies that we've just set up. I've also got the OT Coach Academy, where we have the Pediatric Hub, as well as a brand new Business Owners Hub, and this will be for group practice owners to come together and share and learn. Please note that the information shared in this podcast is general in nature and is not intended to replace individualised advice. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.